Welcome to Think Big with Dan and Qasim. Join hosts Dan Melnick and Qasim Masood as they explore big ideas, limitless possibilities, and engage with visionaries, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders who dare to dream big, get inspired, motivated, and find practical tips for personal growth. Think big, dream bigger, and ignite your potential.
Welcome to Think Big with Dan and Qasim, and our guest today is McCoy. So McCoy, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, tell us where you live and what you do.
Dan, it's nice to meet you. My name is McCoy. I am the CMO of Portland Leather Goods. No surprise here. We are based in Portland, Oregon. Been up here. We've been in business just about 10 years or so.
Awesome. So can you tell me more about Portland Leather Goods? Like, what exactly do you guys do, and how do you serve your customers?
Yeah, we're in the women's handbags and accessory space. As mentioned, we've been in business about 10 years. We started actually in the Etsy space, like most small leather goods brands do. Now Shopify makes it really easy to jump on and start selling. But a decade ago, Shopify wasn't quite as intuitive. So we started on Etsy. We quickly grew. We became one of the 100 top all-time best-selling brands on Etsy, and then eventually migrated over to Shopify in 2018, which is where my journey with Portland Leather Goods began. That's obviously a long time ago. We sell millions of bags per year, and we've scaled from 1 to over 100 million in annual revenue, and we're just really happy, really excited with our growth, and excited to continue that into the future.
Amazing. So obviously you're in a very competitive space, lots of leather bags out there. So how do you guys differentiate yourselves in the market?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Leather is a really interesting industry. It got, really big with brands like Coach in the 90s. Everyone has, probably held or seen like a vintage Coach bag. And then at some point, a lot of the big brands kind of left leather behind. And there's a pretty good reason for that. Leather is a giant pain in the butt, All leather is a byproduct of the beef industry. There are no cows raised or harvested specifically for their leather. It's an incredibly small portion of what farmers make from raising cattle. So we are a byproduct of the beef industry. We stop all of those hides from going in the landfills, which would just be a mountain of hides if they weren't otherwise repurposed for things like automotive, or in our case, handbags and accessories. So what really sets us apart is we're trying to bring leather back and really bring that like classic 90s feel back, not necessarily in the designs, but in the approach to leather. Again, all these bag brands left it in the dust when technology advanced. They moved on to synthetics, they moved on to oil-coated leathers, or even vegan leathers, which are really just oil-based leathers. And we're trying to go back in time and really solve the problems that really are difficult to solve. And so there's a good reason there's not more leather bag brands, and try to source the best leather from around the world, design it into a really simple bag so that the price point is unbelievable, and then bring that to as many people as we possibly can.
So when it comes to sourcing from around the world, what does that look like? Are there certain countries or certain places where you found better quality leather and also for better prices?
Yeah, so almost all of the, I would say almost all the leather we use, for sure, high 90s%, comes from a byproduct, as I mentioned, of the American beef industry. Okay. That leather goes all over the world. It goes to China, it goes to India, it goes to Mexico. And there's a reason for that. One, we have like a really good climate for beef, for cows, that there's not a lot of insects, not a lot of, harsh things out there to bite and scratch and nick at the cows. And also we have really big cows. So that leather goes all over the world. We happen to make our home base in León, Mexico. It's a place that's absolutely world famous for like their leather and their leather craftsmanship. My mother was making leather coats there 30 plus years ago. So it has been world famous as a leather capital of North America for a long, long time. So we happen to touch down and make our central base of operations where we produce a lot of the leather products in the same town where a lot of the leather tanneries exist. And so for us, that's León, Mexico. Again, worldwide renowned, known for like their leather craftsmanship and their ability to like turn incredible hides into incredible pieces of leather.
For sure. So you mentioned that you started off like on Etsy, and now obviously that you became more of like a Shopify brand. What's the breakdown look like today? Do you guys still sell like on Etsy? Do you guys do retail, Amazon? Or what's the breakdown in terms of percentage of different channels?
Yeah, this is kind of an exciting year for us. So we are no longer on Etsy. Around the COVID pandemic era, we shut down both of those sites, and then it was time to bring one back up and charge forward into the future. And so we made the strategic shift over to Shopify away from Etsy. But that was a big seismic shift for us in the company because Portland Leather was an Etsy company. That was our bread and butter. But after working on it a couple of years, we felt comfortable transferring over to Shopify. Today, we are on Amazon. We are almost entire, like high 90% is done online on our Shopify site. But we're really excited to be pushing way more into the physical retail world this year. Our products, I mean, they're leather. There's this whole sensory thing that happens when you walk into one of our 3 retail stores. Like you get hit with the smell, you get to pick up the products and really experience them. And we're really excited for that expansion, especially, coming off of so many really great years of e-com and D2C. It's really fun to go back to what's like the roots of commerce and get our products in like a physical space.
So are you guys kind of expanding regionally in certain parts of the country, like in the Pacific Northwest, or are you kind of going this nationwide expansion from day one? What does that look like for you?
Well, like with most companies, you probably have like your hotspots, places where like your existing customers already are. We're trying to, have a sensible strategy that marries where our existing fan bases are. Our first store outside of the Portland metro area was in Austin, Texas, because we had a really great base of fans there. But for the next, let's say 10 stores, which is what we plan to open in 2025, we're doing a bit of a mixed strategy. We're looking at markets that are just generally really good for retail, as well as areas where we know our existing customers are and are excited to come in and, see and feel our products in that, again, that physical retail world for the first time.
So do you guys do you have any vision or plans to be sold in other retailers, or really just only your own retail shops across the country?
Right now, even expanding to Amazon, took us a while. We really love to like own the experience. And so I don't really see right now us expanding into like a retail distribution model. We're really excited for what's to come with like the retail stores. We're really excited to pop up the stores in awesome locations and to curate the experience and make sure we have, the right products for people to come in and try. And so for now, like our appetite is almost entirely to own that experience. And I think that's what's going to be best for us, frankly, as a company, and also for like our customers, and to own that, experience top to bottom. Our customers are incredible. We have a ridiculously amazing 150,000 member Facebook group called the Portland Leather Insiders.
Oh,
and
wow.
they know our products better than we do. I have been selling these things for 7 years, and I don't know a fraction as much as some of these incredible customers do. And so when you have a customer base that's like that amazing, that dedicated, that loyal, I want to own that experience. I want to do justice by them and provide the best experience that I possibly can in a retail environment.
I love that. Yeah, I think that's, just as you said, right? I mean, that's the challenge with like Amazon or any retail channel. And I always tell people, like, when you go on Amazon, it's their customers, right? It's not your, like, because they own the whole experience. But, having your own store, doing D2C, like, you guys are in full control. And I love that. And in terms of like kind of combining those channels, right? D2C plus the store experience, like, I'm sure you have people that might do both, right? I'm in Austin. I have people that just buy, get things shipped and also go to the store. So how do you kind of like combine those experiences for people who live in a place like Austin, like myself?
Yeah. The truth is, I don't think I have done as good of a job as we plan to in the future. One of our big plans on the roadmap for 2025 with the existing retail stores, we have 3 locations today, is to marry the online and the retail store experience by, moving to Shopify POS. So we've kind of had a little bit of a touch and go journey with POS systems like Square and Lightspeed, and those are good by themselves, to run a small shop. But as I mentioned, like we have so many awesome loyal customers on the online side, and we haven't yet found a good solution to marry those two. So we're excited to integrate with Shopify POS. Hopefully that brings the channel or the experience to be much more omni-channel. Hopefully we can offer things like our loyalty point system that we have online and that customers love, and just get rewarded for the more they purchase. That's pretty typical with the loyalty system. I'm hoping we can bring that to like a retail experience. And then, from a tactical marketing perspective, I think that's going to be really great to better serve the customers and, keep a more accurate version of like their order history, for instance, or keep track of who's purchasing online first and then migrating to an in-retail experience, or the exact opposite. So again, just all tools to like better serve our customers and then bring them the best experience possible. I'm really excited for that in 2025.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I know like I shop at Target and they do like a pretty good job of that, like through their app, because you can see like the stuff that you bought online versus in the store versus like drive up. It's all right there. You can get points, for all of it. So
yeah, it's a great experience.
So I guess in terms of growing on D2C, it's always challenging. And you guys have, as you said, really just scaled up. So what has been the best way? Have you guys done lots of paid ads, like on Meta platforms? Like, what have you really done up to this point to scale up?
Well, I'll probably sound like a broken record, but I think that our number one superpower is being ridiculously product focused. You're going to have a really hard time if you're selling like a suboptimal product. If you're selling for too expensive, a lot of people try to position themselves as luxury, which is just a shortcut for them wanting to sell their products for more. which
Right.
I don't think is a winning strategy. So, I mean, product being really, really product focused is a superpower because as soon as it gets in the customer's hands, like they're going to love it. And if you nail product, you're going to have a much easier time with things like retention. Retention, I think, is something that I'm talking about a lot. I think other brand marketers are really starting to focus on because everyone kind of intuitively knows that customer acquisition is getting more expensive per year. That's kind of like the general consensus. I think that we all need to come up with some sort of consolidated belief on what a limiting factor is for that belief. Like, I don't think it's going to go to $1,000, whatever.
Yeah.
But in general, like we all kind of understand it's getting more expensive.
Right.
And retention is one of those ways to like really pull back and make every customer you acquire stretch further by providing them more products and product journeys that align with like what they want. And that reduces your dependency to like constantly reacquire new customers or acquire new customers. And that be your primary mechanism to scale higher and higher. So, and again, broken record here, that makes it way easier if you nail product. So make a great product, leverage your retention to the absolute maximum. And then we also just have a really strong and deep understanding of how our acquisition works. Again, we have a good product and people talk. We have 250,000 5-star reviews and counting going up every day. And so that type of social proof from an acquisition perspective is just unbelievable to leverage ourselves into efficient acquisition of customers.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, that's so true. And I'm glad that you brought that up because, yeah, people always like have this vision of charging more. And it's like, sure, you can charge more, but as you said, you have to have the quality of the products to back it up. And I think that if you can even charge, less and give your customers a better deal and still have enough margin and, bring that value, you can sell them more products and LTV and all these things because you do have a great product. And I think that's so important.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, charging more is not, it doesn't equal value or even, it may have perceived value up front, but I try to use this analogy and hopefully I won't stumble through the wording of it because I don't practice articulating it on camera. But if you have two identical products and company B decides to charge you more, well, company A is providing you more value because what people forget, we as businesses, especially because we're focused on P&Ls and margins and all of these different metrics, is like the customer is voting with something that's extremely personal to them. It's their dollars. Like it's money out of their pocket. And the more dollars they have to have in their pocket just to participate with your brand, even if the value is there, and if you're just artificially charging more, I would argue it's not, the more you decrease their ability to participate in your brand. So ironically, the person who's charging you less provides you more value. And again, I'm not going to advocate for like a commoditization and a race to the bottom,
Sure.
But like sensible pricing, right? Like
Exactly.
Don't try to gouge your customers out of a buck. It's a really good way to absolutely decimate your throughput on things like retention. If they don't feel like they got a good value, if they don't open the package and they're not like wowed by the amount of product they got for the price they paid, it's going to make it a little bit harder. It's going to make it a lot harder, I think. But in general, like we try to give people a price that they just cannot believe. And a lot of that comes from like our product design. If you look at our products, they're not heavily featured. We don't have big fancy logo or gigantic like gaudy brass hardware on it. One of our design philosophies is if you were to give our bags to like a professional designer and say, make this better, there's nothing for them to take away. They would immediately start adding stuff to it. They'd add fringe or hardware or, whatever it is, sequins, whatever it may be. But there's nothing for them to take away. And that for us is kind of like a gut check that we designed the maximum value product without any bells and whistles. And then we keep that price like unbelievably low so that the value exchange is as high as possible.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, retention is so important, but I am curious though, in terms of, obviously TikTok, we're not sure what's going to happen, but in terms of just like in general, how you've gotten to this point, have you guys really like the Facebook group, I'm sure helps, right? Yeah. 250,000 or 150,000 people you said, right? But in terms of like paid ads, like have you guys done like a lot of paid ads or like influencer partnerships? Like what have you kind of done to grow top line up to this point?
Yeah. Do you want the long story or kind of the shorter condensed version?
Long story's fine.
Okay. I'll give you a little bit of long story. The simple, very short consolidated answer is like, I, as a CMO, tend to be very channel phobic. I like to keep the main thing. And for just about every D2C brand, the main thing is Meta. We're no different. We had, several unlocks along the way. So as I mentioned, I started in 2018. I was a wedding photographer before I was a marketer, and I responded to an ad for a digital media specialist, which to this day, I have no idea what that means, but apparently it's my old job. In any case, I knew how to run Facebook ads to target engaged women in the Portland metro area for wedding photography services. So when we started, I was learning Facebook by selling dop kits and makeup bags that we were monogramming and selling as bridesmaids gifts and groomsmen's gifts. So that was like my first intro into paid media, but we were scared to death to spend money on things like Google and Meta. I used to get written permission slips to spend about $20 a day, right? Which is a long ways away from where we are today. That went on. We had, decent success, with narrow niche angles like bridesmaids and groomsmen and gifts until about 2020 or really 2019. Actually, we had a really great run with Pinterest. We kind of figured out Pinterest really early. I'm saying all this knowing Pinterest is not like the primary channel for us today. But we had a really, really good run with Pinterest around 2019 and 2020, where we kind of really figured out the code and cracked it. I was placing ads on the keyword on the top slot for keywords like Nordstrom's and Nike for 10 cents a click. And at one time I was like 2% of Pinterest total paid media traffic for 10 cents a click. And we kind of hacked our way into this like incredible 12-month period and really blew up the brand in that era. But that's not repeatable. That's not strategy. It was just kind of a fun piece of history that we were able to, it was awesome. In any case, now we are very, very meta heavy, as again, most brands are probably in the high 70s to 80% focus on meta. And again, that's primarily because I happen to be channel phobic. So we're talking about TikTok. We're not sure which way it's going to go. TikTok was not something we really got into. Like I said, I try to keep the main thing. So instead of saying, hey, we can sprinkle 4% of our spend over here or 10% of our spend over there, I tried to keep the team focused and say, why don't we just spend more on meta? Like we haven't hit the ceiling. We're having great results. Why don't we just focus on meta, get better at meta? It's just one big basket. So, we're diversified in other ways. Our retention is a massive form of diversification. Our our Facebook group is a massive, form of diversification as far as our ability to bring revenue into the business. We have Google, we have other channels. So we feel pretty confident right now, just mostly leveraging meta for our results.
Do you have like influencer partnership as well, or has it really been 100% like paid in like the Facebook group, for example?
Yeah. No, we're chronically under leveraged on influencers, I would say. It's one of the things I really want to get back into in 2025. Previously, we had an affiliate program and it went really well, but it was we run a really lean team. So management allocation is a big topic of conversation. We spent every dollar up until the 9-figure scale was spent by myself personally and my coworker, Matt. So an extremely lean team. So I'd love to get back to the influencer and affiliate type programs, but we don't currently have any massive effort in that space right now. So, which is great. I'm glad that we've had success without that, but I would love to bring that to an awesome army of affiliates who would have a great time, talking about our products or selling our products, but and two, just to expand like our social sphere and influence.
For sure. So if we're going to have this conversation again in 1 year from now, where do you see things going for the business?
Ooh, that's a good question. Well, I probably spoiled most of it, talking about retail. I'm really excited about that. I think it's just an opportunity that not many direct consumer brands get to be able to stand up their own retail operation. We've seen a lot of really good D2C brands that have been able to do that, and they're kind of, the big examples on the wall. And so we're hoping we can join that. So the plan again for 2025 is 10 retail stores. And if that goes well, we'd love to expand to double that amount in 2026 and open 20 additional retail stores. And so that's really the big thing on the horizon for us, is to take the brand. We're beloved. We have, like I mentioned, incredible customers and fans, and bring that into the physical world and try to share the products again in that space. I think that they sell better. I think that people experience them better. They can pick them up, they can hold them, they can feel the leather, and it's a whole different world. So for me as the CMO, for the other leaders, I think that we're really excited to become a physical world brand after spending nearly a decade selling exclusively online. So
I guess just tying it into what we were just discussing in terms of ads, are you running ads to drive foot traffic, or what does that look like?
Yeah, I will take, by the way, anyone listening to this has really good paid media for retail experience, please let me know. One, our main strategy is to not need them. I'm a CMO, right? And so I mostly focus on the digital advertising space. So as soon as we started retail, I'm like, okay, what's the playbook? What's the hacky, how do we figure this out? What's the secret? And it really came back to the oldest piece of marketing advice, I think maybe in the book. It's location, location, location. I know that sounds like super boring and cliche, but it's really hard to make a bad location work. You need a lot of footsteps. So just to kind of peek behind the curtain, we have an outlet underneath our offices in Southeast Portland. We have a very similar blueprint in the Austin area. The amount of footsteps that go into the Austin location are a fraction of what our 23rd location, which is a very walkable street in Portland, is. The 23rd gets so many more footsteps. but the conversion rate differentials on those two are staggering. I mean, you're talking about 60 and 80% conversion rates in Austin with a fraction of the footsteps compared to a much lower conversion rate, but a much broader brand awareness. So we are running some paid media to things like the Austin store just to make people aware of it, because it's kind of tucked away and hard to really stumble across, I guess you could say. But our first rule is to, one, not need it, and then add it if we can run events or we're having something, seasonal or special go on. But it's really hard to beat a good location.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's interesting because I think having a good location helps a lot. But when you have a location in a certain place and you're running ads or you have Google ads, it's more of a higher intent location. And then if you can even market, when you're talking about retention marketing, if you have it segmented out by location, say, hey, everybody here in the Austin area, we're here, come to the store, here's a coupon or whatever it is, right? Get them in. It's it's like a much higher intent customer as opposed to somebody just walking down the streets of Fifth Avenue and just sees a store. So
yeah, there's definitely a brand awareness side of it that you manage alongside just the actual driving revenue to the store. I mean, one, if you're listening to this, one thing that we found in our early days, and again, if anyone's listening to this and they have good advice for me, I'm addicted to good advice, so throw it all my way. Physical mail campaigns have seemed to work really well. You probably have a long address list of people who've purchased, within a radius of your store. And there's a bunch of different softwares out there who I think Postpilot is the one that we use. Shout out Postpilot. We really love them. Not sponsored, but in any case, it's been really effective to target those addresses, send them a coupon, send them an offer, send them an announcement that you're doing a sale or whatever it is, and drive that traffic to the store. We found a lot of success with that so far. So that's probably my number one hard-hitting tactic, although I'm just getting started when it comes to retail marketing.
Yeah, it's awesome. So if we could go back in time to before you started this job and before you were hired, what is the one biggest piece of advice that you wish you knew?
Gosh, at the risk of sounding cliche and saying, I wouldn't change any of it, we really went through a lot of stages. So what's unique about Portland Leather Goods, and this is what's flavoring my experience and how I look back on those times, is even today, we own the manufacturer. So we started as an Etsy company. And when you start on Etsy, there's a reasonable implication that you're making your products by hand. That's really what Etsy meant. And this is I can't remember, I think it's the CEO of eBay or whoever it was took over Etsy at some point.
Right.
And really, in our opinion, kind of commoditized the platform, opened it up to a lot of overseas sellers and things like that. But once upon a time, if you were on Etsy, it meant you made the products. So we had a Portland warehouse full of artisans, people who knew how to sew, people who were putting together the bags. And so my marketing journey has always had the other side, which is the operational side of we have to make the physical products, which means you can't sell too fast. You can't sell too slow. You got to keep the people working. And that's still true today. Now we have taken our production to León, Mexico. That happened as a consequence of the COVID pandemic. We couldn't bring people into the Portland workshop and sit them next to each other in sewing machine lines and sewing the products. And so we moved to where we could make the products, which was León, which again, I mentioned is close proximity to our leather supply, which is good. But looking back, when I think about my marketing journey or how we got here, I often describe it as accelerated common sense. I think if you were to try to look at a giant company and say, how do I build that? And I think Mark Zuckerberg actually gives, a similar type of advice where he says I don't know how to build Facebook. That was never the goal. I just took it one step at a time, right? I see it very similarly. It's like accelerated common sense. You show up every day and you make the improvements, and you don't get addicted to the idea that there's some big hack or unlock or software or promise or offer, whatever it is. That's who knows how far in the future. And once you do that, everything's going to fall into place. That's kind of nonsense. You show up every day and you get to work. And so I really wouldn't change much about that. We showed up every day. We tried to find a 1%, we love that theory. We love that philosophy, and just make it better and better and better and better. And if you do that for 5 years in a row, it's unlikely that you won't succeed, or at least be a multiple larger than you are today.
100%. That's great advice. And as you mentioned earlier in the show, it does help that you guys have a great product, and that's super important. I feel like as a marketer, I'm not saying it makes your job easy, but it makes your job easier if you're marketing something that's a fantastic product.
Yeah, without a doubt. It's actually a piece of advice I give, which is hey, if you're a marketer, if you're a junior marketer, and you love it, you're trying to get better. If this is maybe a controversial hot take, who knows? If you're working for a company with a bad product, get out of there, because you're going to learn through a volume of inputs and outputs. And if you're trying your hardest to create, clever angles to trick people into buying a bad product, you are not going to learn as much as the person who gets to sell a great product.
Exactly.
At the volume and at the scale they get to sell that great product, you would much rather have that experience. You will swim laps around them, selling a multiple of the amount of products and getting all that feedback than you will cleverly trying to sell a bad product and then not having retention. You'll learn nothing about retention because people won't come back. So put yourself in an environment where you have a great product to sell, and that's where a lot of that knowledge and a lot of that skill is going to come from.
That's great advice. And so if somebody watching the show wanted to reach out to you or wanted to check out the business, what's the best way for them to find you or to find the business?
Yeah, if you're looking for the business, it's portlandleathergoods.com, and all over Facebook, all over Instagram, we'll find you. If you Google us, I'll get you with an ad sooner or later. If you can believe that. Me personally, I'm on LinkedIn. My name is McCoy Merkley. You can find me there. I'd love to have you. I'd love to talk. Let me know how I can help. I'm here to help. So reach out.
Thanks so much for your time today.
Appreciate it.